Last month I gave part one of a talk with the theme Understanding Your Soul's Journey, wherein I referenced a lovely flower garden that I'd come across while I was vacationing in South America a few months ago. And the topic of that talk was how to experience growth on your spiritual journey, like those colorful flowers. Well, today's talk takes a look at the second part of that theme, which is how to maintain your bloom, like those colorful flowers, when we're planted in less than optimal conditions, basically everyday life, and how our surrounding conditions can affect the trajectory of our spiritual journey. So in part one of the talk, I mentioned an experiment that illustrated Galileo's hypothesis on how mass descends when it's dropped. And that experiment claims to have shown that two objects with different masses can fall at exactly the same rate in a vacuum. Meaning, in a vacuum, all objects, regardless of size or shape or weight, free fall with the same acceleration. Thus, a bowling ball falls at the same rate as a feather. So you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with anything, let alone our spiritual journey? Well, I had found a video on this, and it illustrated the ball and the feather falling at the same time. And when I watched that video and thought about this, it made me pause and think. When the surrounding conditions are optimal, meaning no friction or anything to slow our trajectory, we move forward on our soul's journey in effortless motion, no matter who we are. Just like it didn't matter whether it was a rock, a feather, or a bowling ball. There was effortless movement. And like those colorful flowers from my last talk, how do we keep blooming? Meaning, how do we keep showing and being our authentic selves, in spite of any friction in the conditions around us, like life or the people that we come into every day? And how can we create a vacuum to allow us to move forward with effortless motion? Meaning, eliminating the friction in our surrounding conditions so that we can be in a spiritual flow. So those are some pretty deep queries, I know. But remember last time I mentioned in my talk that whenever I shower, I meditate. So after my last talk on February 23rd, I spent the next few days meditating on the things that I just mentioned. And in doing so, I came up with 3 different situations or conditions that we're planted in at some point in our lives. And by conditions, I meant surroundings that can have an effect on the trajectory of our spiritual journey. And the 3 that I came up with, these 3 areas, these 3 conditions, were work community, friends, and family. And as that week progressed back in February, I found that as I prepared for this talk, things were coming together pretty smoothly. For the condition of work, again, following the theme of the flowers from last time, I likened that to being planted in front of a mirror to see and challenge what you think about your growth among different flowers, bushes, trees, or dare I say weeds. For the condition of friends, I likened it to being planted in a garden to show you how other blooming flowers can stimulate and support your growth. And the last condition was family, one that is a sensitive topic for me, as it is for many of you. And as you would expect, I was in the middle of working on what I was going to say about that condition when Spirit took my soul's journey on a slight detour, and I found myself with a new perspective on all 3. But before I go into that, let's talk a little bit more about these 3 different conditions. So work or community. In this area, you're often around a random assortment of people, to put it kindly. So think about your first workplace job. Maybe it was waiting tables, or maybe, like me, I was a cashier at a grocery store, or even your first salary job out of college, basically the start of your career. Do you remember those coworkers? Your supervisors? For most, you don't get to choose your colleagues. And as we learn, our coworkers and colleagues sometimes see us more than our friends and family. I mean, we've all heard jokes about you having work husbands and work wives because we see them more than we sometimes see our own spouses. And when it comes to your community, what about your neighbors or your classmates? People who you routinely encounter in the places that you frequent. These people often affect us in similar ways. Earlier, I likened these conditions to being planted in front of a mirror, meant to challenge what you see in yourself and compare your growth among different flowers, trees, and bushes, and I even said weeds. And I use those terms on purpose, actually. I was looking at flowers as those we admire. I was looking at bushes as groups of people that we don't necessarily engage with, but they're around us. I was looking at trees as those who we deem wise or superior to us, and weeds as those who bring out the worst in us. I've come to understand that when it's all said and done, we're meant to learn lessons from them and them from us. Now, about friends, in this area, you're around people that you get to choose. And you can laugh with them, you can cry to them, you can be yourself around them. And sometimes we choose to be around them more than we do family, and definitely more than we do work people. And being planted in a garden of friends means you are surrounded by blooming flowers that can stimulate and support your growth, and that can remind you to bloom when, due to the business of life, you seem to forget just how awesome you truly are. And some of us wouldn't be where we are today had it not been for the treasured friendships that we've cultivated along the way. Now, when it comes to family, I hear, yes. Here, like the workplace, we're around people that you don't get to choose. Well, at least not once you arrive here on the Earth plane, and that's another talk on another Sunday, so I'll just put that aside for now. But I find this condition to be somewhere between work and friends. People that you can be most authentic with and can be your biggest supporters, but can also be people who test and judge you and can mirror your inadequacies and leave you truly wondering if blood is thicker than water. And if we're being honest, far more people than we like to think experience the latter. So now going back to the slight detour that I mentioned earlier. So it was Friday, February the 28th, 5 days after my last sermon. I got a call from my brother early that morning that my father's health had taken an unexpected and drastic turn for the worse. And many of you watching and listening today remember that I gave a talk last year that I'd recently reconnected with my father after 40 years apart, so basically since my parents' divorce. And upon hearing this fateful news that day, I immediately booked a flight to the East Coast that same evening. But before I could board the plane, he passed away. And this past weekend was the funeral. So here I am, trying to pick up where I left off. So this detour made me think and reevaluate a lot of things in my life, including the condition known as family. In my master life plan, I know that I chose to incarnate into this lifetime with these particular energy beings, and that we all make the choice of who will be our parents and which family we will be born into. But I didn't know the role that they, in their human form, would or would not play in my life and my soul's evolution. If I had known, would I still have chosen them to be in my family? At first blush, my human self, sitting in my human emotions, would say, no, not at all. But since I know that we all sign up to incarnate into human form and have experiences on the earth plane to evolve our soul's growth, in the end, everything happens for our best and highest good. So yes, I guess the answer would be yes. So where does that leave us? When your jobs and community are gone because you got laid off or fired, or a pandemic strikes and work is no longer viable, what do you do? When your friends are gone because they have their own issue to deal with, or a pandemic strikes and you can't see each other, what do you do? When your family's gone because they pass away, or they were never really there for you in a way that you needed or deserved anyway, what do you do? I think these are questions that everyone has grappled with at some point in their lives, especially now with the current state of affairs in the world. But no matter how you phrase it, I think it really comes down to one underlying issue. When our surrounding conditions aren't ideal because of the people we're around or the state of the world, how do we show and be our authentic selves? And how do we minimize or eliminate external friction in our surrounding conditions so that we can be in spiritual flow and move forward with ease? Well, in the video that I told you about earlier that illustrated this falling feather and bowling ball and Galileo's hypothesis, there was a line in the video that really stuck out with me. And the line said, "To see the true nature of gravity, remove the air." So to see the true nature of gravity, we need to remove the air. In other words, life sometimes needs to strip away things around you so that you can see and appreciate the core of who you are. And I feel like the last of my air was removed when my father passed away a few weeks ago. And now I'm here, stripped down to my most authentic self, and relying on the gravity of spirit to move me further on my spiritual path. But I'm sure I'm not alone, as many of you are going through something that has removed your air and left you feeling like you're in a state of a free fall. And I would offer to you that, like the ball and the feather that I mentioned a little bit ago, we must remain our authentic selves through it all, even when things appear to be falling around us. So in keeping with my original flower theme, know that you chose the type of flower or person that you would be in this life. We all came here with unique desires and gifts that need to be expressed in this lifetime. In other words, you are meant to bloom and thrive, no matter what anyone tells you or how hard their own inadequacies try to make you believe otherwise. And every flower needs certain conditions to thrive in, meaning if you aren't getting the right nutrients to bloom, you may need to be replanted. And sometimes digging up your roots for the replanting process is not easy and can be emotionally painful, and you may even lose parts of you, especially if the conditions you were in were dry or cracked or scorched. But know that as you get into fresh soil, your roots will gain life again and be able to grow stronger, and will be able to be a better conduit to get you the nutrients that you need to thrive. And you'll bloom in the way that you were always intended to. Know that once you're out of conditions that you were surrounded with that have friction, your spirit will now be free to grow and move and even enjoy the occasional free fall. You'll no longer be energetically bombarded with other people's overt or subconscious traumas, fears, manipulations, inadequacies, unworthiness, and all the other hosts of external projections that we have to navigate through from birth till death. And removing these from your surroundings will let you hear and feel and know spirit on an intimate level, and give you the support that you need to accelerate on your spiritual journey. So I would say look around you and take inventory of those in your environment. Who are the ones that are supporting you? Who are the ones helping you reflect on the real you, the one that needs to be unapologetically seen and valued? Who are the ones that you can be emotionally safe with? These are the ones that make your replanting process easier. These are your spiritual landscapers. Now, as you continue to take inventory, notice where the friction is. Who are the ones who continually hurt you despite your grace with their behavior? Who are the ones that are standing next to you who seem to be holding you up, but are really just blocking your sunlight? Who are the ones stealing your nutrients to benefit their own growth? These are the ones who will make you feel that the ground will be barren no matter where you go, that your roots are weak, and that your need to bloom is the problem. These people, my dear friends, are the ones who bought the story of their own spiritual limitations and are attempting to sell you their enabling narrative. But don't buy one drop of that nonsense. No one gets to determine the trajectory of your spiritual path except for you. And in the end, once your inventory is complete and any frictional air around you has been removed and you've been replanted, the lightness you will feel will be amazing. And for those of you wondering, yes, I've been going through the inventory process over the last few years and especially the last few weeks. And yes, I have had to replant myself in new conditions when it came to work, friends, and family. And I will continue to do so if guided. In fact, I've realized that the replanting process gets easier when your roots are stronger. Meaning you understand your need for spiritual growth in this lifetime will sometimes outweigh your desire for emotional comfort, whether it be yours or the people around you. Meaning that you learn that the time you invest in things and the people that you spend around must fulfill your soul's blueprint. Meaning that you know that your spiritual family will sometimes replace that of your earthly family. Meaning that you feel the need to be and stay more energetically connected to the unlimited reservoir of love called God, which some call Source, the creator of all that is, the divine, or whatever name you choose, because it's all the same. So if you're wondering how I'm doing after my last replanting process, having lost a parent, feeling emotionally and physically disconnected from family, appreciative of true friends, and thankful for my ever-evolving spiritual journey, well, I'm feeling weightless. I'm feeling ready to finally bloom and stay blooming. I'm feeling like I'm failing better at life. And yes, I said that. We all need to learn to fail better at life. And becoming more equipped and excited for the various detours that lay ahead. And above all, I'm feeling like Spirit has my back and will always be there for me, even when I forget to be there for myself. Now, understanding your soul's journey is indeed a complicated process, yet it's a beautiful process. And it's going to provide you with the knowledge that you'll rely on for lifetimes to come. And I pray that you can use this unprecedented time in our world to inwardly reflect and take inventory of your surrounding conditions and unapologetically make any adjustments you need to remind yourself of the wonderful, unique gift that you came to be in this lifetime. Because now, more than ever, the world needs you, and you need you.